This video is a quick breakdown with all the information you need to quickly and cheaply repair your vacuum system on a JB43 Suzuki Jimny. I bought my Jimny in 2023. It's a 2005 model, 1.3 liter Jimny with the M13A motor. It's a JB43. As part of the rite of passage for any Jimny owner, I have recently rebuilt the swivel hubs. I replaced the gaskets, kingpins, and the bearings, and I tried to tackle the death wobble. It did solve the issue with the death wobble, which is great, but after the repair, I noticed the four-wheel drive wouldn't engage. The four-wheel drive light would blink, but nothing would lock. It just wouldn't engage. I checked underneath the vehicle. I put it up on stilts, and I saw that the front wheel did not move, but the front drive shaft would rotate. So the transfer case had engaged four-wheel drive, but the hubs had not locked. It turned out it was the pneumatic hub lockers. I tracked down the issue by starting at the root. I stuck some screwdrivers into the vacuum lines to see if it would build up vacuum, and luckily it could, which makes this a pretty easy fix. I checked this by just putting the screws in, zip tying them, ensuring I had vacuum, and then going in and pressing the buttons inside the car. So when you convert Jimnys to manual hub lockers, this is typically what people do to trick the four-wheel drive controller into thinking the hubs have been locked. I did the same procedure as they would have done to ensure the sensor worked and that the leak wasn't close to the motor or by the motor. Basically eliminating all the more tricky and hard ways of fixing this. So luckily it turned out the leak was a physical problem with the tubing that goes down to the hubs. It was very far down above the front axle where the rusted out metal vacuum lines had sheared off. I accidentally must have done this during the repairs, even though I was trying to be very careful. So I guess it was time to replace these lines anyway. This is how I found the line. You can see it's completely sheared off and very rusty. So if your lines look like this, I suggest taking the time to repair this so you don't get stuck in the forest or on a beach or something, four-wheel driving. So now on to the fix. What I did was buy some 4mm inner diameter tubing. I ordered 12 meters, but only ended up using about 6 meters. I did read online that this is roughly how much you need, but I decided to get a bit more as it's pretty cheap, and I prefer knowing I have some spare tubing in case I fuck up. The repair is pretty straightforward, but what isn't really clear is where the tubing goes. I decided to color code my lines with red for locking and blue for unlocking. And as I was doing this, I figured I should also document it and share it online so it's easy for anyone that comes after me to kind of figure this out pretty quickly. You can find your vacuum lines to the right of your battery slightly below it. The top tube has a white line around it, and this is the locking line. The other line right underneath the first one is the unlocking line. I put red tubing on the locking line and blue tubing on the unlocking line, and then added a T-splitter right afterwards. The reason for putting the splitter in the engine bay and not on top of the diff like the OEM solutions is for ease of repairs. I figured if I get a leak, I can just zip a new line to the leaky one and pull it all the way through the car up to the engine bay where I have easy access to the T-splitter and I don't have to get underneath the car. I think this makes sense, but who knows? I might be wrong. I also suggest running the new tubing the same way the original tubing was ran to avoid it getting pinched or damaged. The people at Suzuki have been doing this for way longer than me, so I trust them with this one. Don't want to get too creative here. At the hub, I suggest cleaning your hubs a little bit so you don't get debris into your tubing. The hubs can get really dirty, especially if you had oil leaks like I had, or if you've been off-roading and there's mud everywhere, and you don't want any debris getting inside of the tubing. As I mentioned, I just did the swivel hub rebuild, so it's not too dirty. I did clean it a bit when I was doing that, went straight into it. So the locking lines go in front of the hub or in the direction of travel. So if you think you're standing in the middle between the hubs, the locking line, or in this case the red line, should always be in front of the blue line. The blue line, or the unlocking line, goes between the brake assembly screws. There's a little valve there, or there's two valves on each hub, and you push the lines onto the valve. And this is super straightforward, super easy. For the second wheel, whichever wheel you pick, the procedure is exactly the same but mirrored. You might have a little less or a little more line required depending on which wheel you started with, but it's the same procedure. The locking line still goes in front of the direction of travel, and the unlocking line still goes between the brake assembly screws. I hope this has been helpful. If there's any questions, just leave them down in the comments. I might update some stuff or add some annotations if I missed something. This is a pretty straightforward job to do. Super cheap. I think it cost me about 80 euros for all the lines, and I got some pretty good, nice lines. But you can definitely get away much cheaper. And yeah, just making sure there's information out there for anyone else encountering this.